the cargo freighter. Dawn's Promise drifted toward Nexus Station like a tired bird returning to its nest. Captain Dae-ho Kim watched the massive structure grow larger on his view screen, its spinning rings gleaming under the light of 3 distant suns. He had made this run 100 times before, hauling medical supplies, mining equipment, and whatever else paid enough to keep his ship flying. Today's cargo was simple: processed metals from the outer colonies, bound for the station's manufacturing district. Dae-ho stretched in his captain's chair, feeling his back crack after 6 hours of monitoring the autopilot. The bridge was quiet except for the gentle hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the navigation console. His co-pilot and engineer, Tae-min Choi, had gone below to check on a rattling coolant line. That left Dae-ho alone with his thoughts, which lately had been wandering back to his old life. 5 years ago, he had worn a different uniform. Federation military intelligence had trained him to break codes, intercept enemy transmissions, and turn seemingly random data into actionable information. He had been good at it too, good enough that they wanted him to stay. But the desk work, the politics, and the endless suspicion had worn him down. When his contract ended, he bought a used freighter and never looked back, or so he told himself. Dawn's Promise. This is Nexus Control, a voice crackled over the comm. You are cleared for Docking Bay 7-3. Please maintain current approach vector. Dae-ho keyed the response. Acknowledged Control, Bay 7-3. The station was busy today. Dozens of ships orbited in carefully managed patterns, waiting their turn to dock. Dae-ho recognized the sleek lines of Federation patrol craft, the bulky haulers from the mining consortiums, and the elegant curved hulls of Valoran diplomatic vessels. The Valorans were insectoid aliens who controlled a vast empire on the other side of known space. Their ships always looked like they had been grown rather than built, all smooth organic curves and translucent sections that glowed with bioluminescent light. Dae-ho had never liked dealing with Valorans. Not out of prejudice exactly, but because they made him nervous. Their multifaceted eyes saw in spectrums humans couldn't perceive. Their communication involved pheromones as much as words. And their political system was so complex that human diplomats needed years of training just to avoid accidentally insulting someone important. Still, they paid well and rarely caused trouble. That was enough for a cargo captain. The docking procedure went smoothly. The Dawn's Promise settled into its assigned bay with a gentle thump, and the station's atmosphere processors began equalizing pressure. Dae-ho ran through his post-flight checklist, noting a few minor repairs that Tae-min would need to handle before they departed. Nothing urgent. We're down, Tae-min's voice called from below. I'll start the unloading process. Thanks. I'm going to check in with the cargo master, then maybe grab some real food. Dae-ho sealed the bridge and made his way down the corridor. The Dawn's Promise was not a large ship, just 3 decks and barely enough room for a crew of 2. But it was his, paid off and registered in his name. That counted for something in this part of space. The cargo bay opened onto the station's main dock, where crews in various uniforms and species moved about their business. Dae-ho spotted the cargo master's office and headed that direction, dodging a loader drone that beeped angrily at him. The station smelled like every station. Recycled air, machine oil, and the faint tang of ozone from the environmental systems. He was halfway to the office when the shouting started. Dae-ho turned to see a group of Federation security officers confronting several Valoran dignitaries near one of the diplomatic berths. The Valorans were tall, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming purple and green under the dock lights. They wore ornate sashes that marked them as official representatives. The security officers had their hands on their weapons, but hadn't drawn them yet. This area is restricted, one officer was saying, his voice tight with tension. You need proper clearance to... "We have clearance," one of the Valorans clicked back, his translator device rendering the words in flat, emotionless tones. "Provided by your own diplomatic corps. Check your records." More security officers were arriving. So were more Valorans. Deho felt his instincts kick in, the same instincts that had kept him alive during his military service. This was going bad fast. He should leave, get back to his ship, mind his own business. But he didn't move. Old habits pulled at him. The confrontation escalated. One of the security officers grabbed a Valoran's arm, and the alien reacted with startling speed, knocking the human's hand away. Weapons came out. Someone shouted a warning, and then the world exploded into chaos. Energy weapons discharged with sharp cracks. The Valorans had personal shields that flared bright blue when struck. Security officers dove for cover. Civilians screamed and ran. Deho pressed himself against a cargo container, his heart pounding. It was over in less than a minute. No one appeared to be seriously hurt, but the damage was done. Federation officers had fired on Valoran diplomats on a neutral station. The political fallout would be enormous. As station alarms wailed and more security forces poured into the area, Deho made his decision. He activated his ship's remote systems using his wrist comm, setting the external sensors to record everything. The Dawn's Promise had good sensors, better than most cargo ships because Deho had installed military-grade equipment during a paranoid phase 2 years ago. If this incident was going to start a diplomatic crisis, someone needed to have an unbiased recording. Later, after the area was cleared and everyone was ordered back to their ships, Deho sat in his quarters reviewing the sensor data. Tae-min had finished the unloading and was arguing with the cargo master about payment delays. Deho barely heard him. He was focused on his console, watching the recorded footage again and again. Something was wrong. The data showed the usual things: visual recordings, thermal scans, electromagnetic readings. But buried in the EM spectrum was something that made Deho's blood run cold. A signal, brief and encrypted, had been transmitted just before the confrontation began. He isolated the signal and ran it through his ship's computer. The encryption was old, obsolete by modern standards, but Deho recognized it immediately. He had spent 3 years learning to decode exactly this type of message. It was a Federation military intelligence protocol, the kind used by deep-cover operatives to communicate with handlers, the kind that civilians should never encounter, the kind that, according to every briefing Deho had ever received, only Federation spies used. Someone had triggered that confrontation deliberately. Someone with access to classified encryption methods. Someone who wanted Valorans and humans shooting at each other. Deho sat back, his mind racing. He should delete this data. He should forget he ever saw it. He should fly away from Nexus Station and never look back. But he couldn't. Not with this knowledge. Not with the possibility that someone was engineering a conflict that could kill millions. His comm chimed. Tae-min's voice came through. "Boss, we've got a problem. Station security just locked down all ships. No one leaves until they finish investigating the incident." Deho closed his eyes. Of course they did. "Understood," he said. "Stay with the ship. I need to think." He cut the connection and stared at the encrypted signal on his screen. Somewhere on this station was a spy using methods that should have been buried in classified archives. Somewhere was a conspiracy that could start a war. And somehow, Deho had become the only person who knew about it. Deho spent the next 2 hours trying to act normal while his mind worked through impossible scenarios. He helped Tae-min run diagnostics on the coolant system. He filed the cargo delivery paperwork. He ate a tasteless meal from the galley without remembering what it was. All the while, the encrypted signal haunted him. The smart move was to delete everything and pretend he had seen nothing. Station security would handle the investigation. Federation diplomats would smooth things over with the Valorans. Life would continue. But Deho had seen too many intelligence operations go wrong during his service. He knew how easy it was for the truth to get buried under layers of politics and classified reports. If someone was really trying to start a conflict, they would have contingency plans. They would have people in place to control the narrative. He was in his quarters, staring at the ceiling, when his ship's proximity alert chimed. Someone was approaching the Dawn's Promise. Deho checked the external cameras and felt his stomach tighten. 4 Valoran guards in ceremonial armor stood outside his airlock. Between them was a smaller figure, also Valoran, but dressed in flowing robes of deep crimson. The robes were marked with symbols that Deho's limited knowledge of Valoran culture identified as royal insignia. This was very bad. His comm activated. Captain Kim. The translator made the Valoran's voice sound feminine and precise. I am Princess Hana of the Valoran Empire. I request a private audience. It concerns the incident you witnessed earlier. Deho's hand hovered over the controls. He could refuse. He could claim illness or ship problems. But refusing a Valoran princess would raise questions he didn't want to answer. How do you know I witnessed anything? He asked carefully. Your ship's sensors were active during the confrontation. I noticed. So did others, though they may not yet understand what you recorded. A pause. Please, Captain. What I have to discuss cannot be said over open channels. Against every instinct, screaming at him to run, Deho opened the airlock. Princess Hana entered alone, leaving her guards outside. She was tall, like all Valorans, with an exoskeleton that shimmered with purple and silver undertones. Her multifaceted eyes were larger than average for her species, giving her face an almost delicate appearance despite the alien features. The crimson robes moved around her with unsettling grace. Thank you for seeing me, she said, her translator perfectly matching the slight bow she gave. I know this is unusual. That's one word for it. Deho gestured to the small meeting area near the galley. Please sit. Though I'm not sure what a princess wants with a cargo captain. Hana settled into a chair designed for humans, managing to make it look dignified despite the awkward fit. I want to discuss the signal you detected. Deho kept his expression neutral, but his heart rate spiked. I don't know what you mean. Captain Kim, please. I monitored the same electromagnetic frequencies you did. I saw the encrypted transmission that preceded the confrontation. Hana leaned forward slightly. I know what it was, because I have studied Federation military protocols extensively. That was a covert operations signal. Someone ordered that incident to happen. The room felt too small suddenly. Deho sat down across from her, his mind racing. You're saying you can decode Federation intelligence encryption? Partially. My training included comprehensive analysis of human military systems. She made a gesture that her translator interpreted as rueful. My official role is cultural observer, but my actual function is intelligence assessment. I was sent to study humanity because my government believes you will be our greatest rivals in the coming decades. The casual admission of espionage should have made Deho angry. Instead, he felt a strange respect for her honesty. Why tell me this? Because I need your help, and because you need mine. Hana produced a small data device from her robes. I was able to decode portions of the signal, but not all of it. The encryption uses adaptive keys that change based on context I don't fully understand. You have military intelligence training. Your file says you were a cryptographer before becoming a merchant. You've read my file. I have read many files. Yours became interesting when your ship began recording during a diplomatic incident. Hana set the data device on the table between them. The partial decoding I achieved suggests this is not an isolated event. Someone is orchestrating tensions between our peoples. If we do not act, the next incident may be worse. Deho picked up the device, turning it over in his hands. Why not take this to your government, or mine? Because I do not know who to trust. The signal originated from within this station, which means the conspirators have access to restricted areas. They may have people in both our governments. Hana's eyes reflected the room's light in strange patterns. And because if I approach this officially, it becomes a political matter. Accusations will be made, defenses will be raised, the truth will be lost in the noise. It made sense. Too much sense. Daeho looked at the alien princess sitting in his ship and tried to figure out what game she was playing, but his instincts, the same ones that had kept him alive in intelligence work, told him she was being genuine. "All right," he said slowly. "Show me what you've decoded." They spent the next hour in Daeho's small computer lab, analyzing the signals. Hana had been right about the encryption. It was definitely Federation military intelligence protocol, specifically the kind used for deep cover operations. But it had been modified somehow, made more complex. "This doesn't make sense," Daeho muttered, pulling up another layer of the code. This protocol was retired 4 years ago, too vulnerable to quantum decryption. Why would active operatives use it? Perhaps because they are not active operatives, Hana suggested. Perhaps they are using old methods precisely because they are supposed to be obsolete. Daeho stopped and looked at her. That's actually smart. Modern security systems wouldn't be watching for old protocols. They'd filter right through. Working together, they made progress. Daeho handled the technical decryption while Hana provided context about Velaran diplomatic movements and station security procedures. It was strange working with an alien who had been sent to spy on humanity, but her analytical mind was sharp and her knowledge extensive. Taemin found them 3 hours later, surrounded by holographic displays and empty coffee containers. He stopped in the doorway, staring at the Valoran princess sitting at the captain's personal terminal. "Boss, what the hell is going on?" "It's complicated," Daeho said without looking up. "Taemin, this is Princess Hana. We're working on something." "Working on something," Taemin repeated slowly. "With Valoran royalty, in our computer lab, while the station is locked down investigating a shooting incident between our species. Like I said, complicated." Taemin looked between them, his expression cycling through confusion, alarm, and resignation. "You know this is insane, right? You're trusting someone who literally admitted to being a spy." "I am trusting someone who wants to prevent a war," Daeho corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Taemin crossed his arms. "Boss, you spent 5 years trying to forget your intelligence days. Now you're diving right back in with someone who could be playing you." "He has a point," Hana said calmly. "You should not trust me completely. I would not trust me in your position." "Great. Even she agrees this is stupid." Taemin ran a hand through his hair. "I'm going to go check the engines. Try not to start an interstellar incident while I'm gone." After he left, Hana tilted her head in that distinctly alien way. "Your friend is wise to be cautious. He's kept me alive more than once." Daeho returned to the decryption work. "But so have my instincts. And they're telling me you're being straight with me. What if your instincts are wrong? Then I guess we're both in trouble." They worked in silence for a while longer, until finally a section of the code unlocked. Daeho read the decoded message and felt ice in his veins. "Hana, look at this." The message was brief but clear. It contained coordinates, timestamps, and a simple instruction. Escalate. Next phase in 48 hours. "There are more incidents planned," Hana said quietly. "This was just the beginning." Daeho pulled up the station schematic and plotted the coordinates. They pointed to the diplomatic quarter, specifically the area where high-level negotiations between Federation and Valoran representatives were scheduled to take place in 2 days. "They're going to hit the peace talks," he said. "Whatever they did today was just a test. The real attack is coming." Hana stood, her robes swirling around her. Then we have 48 hours to find out who is behind this and stop them. We don't even know where to start. Yes, we do. Hana pointed to a section of the decoded data. The signal originated from inside the station. Your sensors recorded the transmission point. We start there. Daeho looked at the coordinates and felt that old familiar rush, the one he had thought he left behind, the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of piecing together a puzzle that others missed. He was getting pulled back into the intelligence game, and despite everything, part of him was glad. The transmission point was in Section 12, a maintenance area deep in the station's industrial quarter. Daeho and Hana made their way through crowded corridors, trying to look like they had legitimate business. The station was still tense after the shooting incident, with security patrols everywhere and nervous civilians hurrying about their tasks. We need to be careful, Daeho said quietly as they passed another checkpoint. Station security is watching for unusual activity. I am a diplomatic observer, Hana replied calmly. It is my duty to observe. What I observe is my own business. That excuse won't work if they catch us breaking into restricted areas. Then we should not get caught. Daeho couldn't help a slight smile. For a princess, Hana had a remarkably practical approach to problems. Section 12 was less crowded, mostly automated systems and the occasional maintenance worker. The area smelled like hot metal and cleaning chemicals. Hana consulted the coordinates on her personal device, leading them deeper into the maze of corridors. They found the transmission point in a small equipment room filled with communication relays. The door was locked, but Hana produced a small tool from her robes and had it open in seconds. Where did you learn that? Daeho asked. Intelligence training includes many useful skills. Hana entered the room and began examining the relay equipment. Your people are not the only ones who prepare their operatives for difficult situations. The room was cramped and hot, filled with blinking lights and the hum of electronics. Daeho pulled out a scanner and began checking for residual signals. The equipment here was standard station infrastructure, designed to route communications throughout Nexus Station. Nothing appeared modified or unusual. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. The signal definitely came from here, but there's no evidence of tampering. Hana was examining a particular relay unit, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the indicator lights in complex patterns. Perhaps the tampering was designed to be temporary. A skilled operator could route a signal through this equipment and leave no trace. That would require someone with extensive knowledge of the station systems and physical access to this room, which means someone who works here, or someone who can move freely through maintenance areas without raising suspicion. Hana straightened up. We need the station's access logs. That was going to be a problem. Access logs were controlled by station security, and Daeho had no legitimate reason to request them. He was thinking about possible approaches when his comm chimed. It was an old friend, someone he hadn't talked to in months. Dr. Hyunwoo Lee, a xenolinguist who worked in the station's diplomatic services. They had met years ago at a Federation conference and stayed in touch. Daeho, I heard your ship was docked here. Are you all right? That shooting incident was crazy. Daeho glanced at Hana, who nodded. I'm fine, Hyunwoo. Actually, I could use your help with something. Can we meet? They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe in the civilian quarter. Daeho and Hana left the maintenance section carefully, taking different routes to avoid attracting attention. When Daeho arrived at the cafe, Hyunwoo was already there. A tall man with graying hair and kind eyes behind old-fashioned glasses. Good to see you, Hyunwoo said warmly, then noticed Hana approaching. His eyes widened slightly. And you've brought interesting company. Dr. Lee, this is Princess Hana. We're working together on something important. Hyunwoo recovered his composure quickly, bowing slightly to Hana. Your Highness, this is unexpected. Please, just Hana. Titles are unnecessary among colleagues. She sat gracefully, managing to make the human-sized chair work for her alien frame. Daeho speaks highly of your expertise in cross-cultural communication. I try to help people understand each other. Hyun-woo looked between them with open curiosity. What brings a cargo captain and a Valoran princess together? Daeho made a decision. Hyun-woo was trustworthy, and they needed help. He explained the situation in broad terms, leaving out the most classified details, but making clear that someone was trying to sabotage human-Valoran relations. Hyun-woo listened carefully, his expression growing serious. I had wondered about that incident. The initial reports didn't make sense. Both sides claimed the other initiated hostilities, but the timeline was too convenient. We have evidence of outside manipulation, Hana said, but we need access to station records to trace the source. Can you help? I have some access to diplomatic communication logs, but not security systems. Hyun-woo thought for a moment. However, I have a contact in station administration. She might be able to help if we're careful about how we ask. They spent the next hour planning their approach. Hyun-woo would request access to communication logs under the guise of preparing a report on the diplomatic incident. Meanwhile, Daeho would analyze the encrypted signals further, trying to extract more information about the conspiracy's scope. Back on the Dawn's Promise, Daeho found Tae-min performing maintenance with exaggerated vigor, a sure sign he was angry. Still mad at me? Daeho asked. You're investigating a conspiracy with an alien spy. Yes, I'm still mad. Tae-min didn't look up from the panel he was working on. This isn't our fight, boss. We're cargo haulers, not heroes. If this conspiracy succeeds, there won't be any cargo to haul. War tends to disrupt shipping routes. Don't pretend this is about business. You miss the old days, the puzzles, the secrets, the feeling of being important. Tae-min finally looked at him. But those days almost got you killed, multiple times. Daeho sat down on a crate. You're right. I do miss it sometimes. The sense of purpose. He paused. But this isn't about nostalgia. People are going to die if we don't stop this. And right now, we're the only ones who know enough to make a difference. Tae-min was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. Fine. But when this blows up in our faces, I'm saying I told you so. Deal. Hana arrived an hour later with news. Hyun-woo's contact had provided preliminary access logs, and there was something interesting. 3 different individuals had accessed the relay room in the hours before the shooting incident. 2 were regular maintenance workers with documented schedules. The third was listed only as Security Consultant Soo-ah Park. Detective Park, Daeho said, recognition clicking into place. She's with station security. I saw her at the shooting scene. Why would a security detective need access to communication relays? Hana asked. Good question. Let's find out. They pulled up Detective Park's public profile. She had an impressive record. 15 years with station security, multiple commendations, specialization in cybercrime and communications fraud. She had transferred to Nexus Station 6 months ago from a smaller outpost. 6 months, Daeho said thoughtfully. Long enough to learn the systems, establish routines, build trust. Hana was studying Park's transfer records. Her previous posting was near Valoran space. She would have experience with our diplomatic protocols. And access to security systems that could let her move through the station unnoticed. Daeho felt pieces clicking together. She's perfect, either as a conspirator or as someone investigating the conspiracy. We need to determine which. That was easier said than done. Approaching a security detective with accusations required evidence they didn't have, but watching her might reveal which side she was on. Daeho set up passive monitoring of Park's movements using public security cameras. It wasn't illegal exactly, since the cameras were already there, and he was just watching the feeds. It was, however, definitely suspicious behavior if caught. For 2 days, they watched. Park followed normal routines: shift work, meal breaks, paperwork. Nothing unusual. Daeho was starting to think they had the wrong person when something changed. On the evening of the second day, Park left the security offices and headed toward the diplomatic quarter. She moved carefully, checking over her shoulder occasionally. At one point, she ducked into a service corridor and waited, as if making sure she wasn't followed. "She's going somewhere she doesn't want people to know about," Taemin observed. He had reluctantly joined the surveillance effort. They tracked Park through the camera system as she made her way to a restricted area near the main diplomatic conference hall. The same hall where the peace talks were scheduled for tomorrow. "We need eyes on her," Daeho said. "Hana, can you—" "I am already going." Hana stood, adjusting her robes. "I have diplomatic clearance for that area. I will appear to be conducting routine observations." After Hana left, Daeho continued monitoring the cameras while Taemin worked on enhancing the signal analysis. An hour passed with no contact from Hana, then 2 hours. Daeho was starting to worry when his comm finally activated. "Daeho!" Hana's voice was tense. "Park is planting some kind of device near the conference hall. I cannot tell what it is, but her behavior is clearly covert. Can you stop her?" "Not without revealing we have been watching. And I am not certain she is the enemy. She may be investigating the same conspiracy we are." Daeho made a quick decision. "I'm coming to you. We confront her together. If she's investigating, she'll have evidence. If she's part of the conspiracy, we can't let her finish whatever she's doing." "Understood. But hurry." Daeho grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Taemin called after him. "Boss, this is a terrible idea." "I know. Keep monitoring the signals. If anything happens to us, send everything to Hyunwoo." The diplomatic quarter was tense with security, preparing for tomorrow's talks. Daeho used his merchant credentials to access the public areas, then slipped into a service corridor that Hana had marked for him. He found her waiting in the shadows, watching Park through a maintenance access point. Park was examining something on a wall panel, her movements quick and professional. She looked up suddenly, as if sensing she was being watched, and her hand moved to her weapon. "Detective Park," Daeho called out, stepping into view. "We need to talk." Detective Sua Park's weapon cleared its holster in a smooth, practiced motion. Her eyes flicked between Daeho and Hana, assessing threats and escape routes in an instant. The corridor was silent except for the hum of environmental systems. "Captain Kim," Park said carefully, her weapon not quite pointing at them but ready to move. "This is a restricted area. You need to leave, now." "We will," Daeho said, keeping his hands visible. "After you explain what you're doing planting devices near the diplomatic conference hall." Park's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Calculation. "You've been following me." "We've been investigating a conspiracy to sabotage the peace talks," Hana said calmly, stepping out of the shadows. "We needed to determine if you were part of it or working against it." For a long moment, Park didn't move. Then, slowly, she holstered her weapon. "You're the merchant captain with military intelligence training, and Princess Hana, the cultural observer who isn't actually a cultural observer." She smiled slightly. "Station security isn't blind. We noticed your activities." "Then you know about the encrypted signals," Daeho said. "I know someone is using old Federation protocols to coordinate something. I don't know who or exactly what." Park glanced back at the wall panel she had been examining. "I've been trying to trace the source for 3 weeks. This device," she gestured to the panel, "is a scanner. I'm checking for tampering or planted surveillance." "You think they're watching the conference hall?" "I think they're planning something for tomorrow's talks, and I can't get my superiors to take it seriously. They think I'm paranoid." Park looked at them directly. "So I'm working alone, or I was until you two started your own investigation." Hana moved closer, examining the scanner readout. You found something. Maybe. There are unusual power fluctuations in this section. Could be normal wear, could be something else. Park closed the panel. Look, we shouldn't talk here. Too many cameras, too many ears. I have a secure location. They followed Park through a series of maintenance corridors to a small office in the security sector. The room was clearly lived in, with coffee stains on the desk and files stacked everywhere. Park activated a privacy field that would block surveillance. All right, she said, sitting down heavily. Tell me everything you know. They shared information for the next hour. Daiho explained about the sensor recordings and the encrypted transmission. Hana provided her analysis of the signals and their implications for diplomatic relations. Park listened carefully, occasionally asking sharp questions. This fits with what I've found, she said finally. The protocols you're describing match a series of communications I flagged in the station's data traffic. Someone is using old military encryption to send messages to multiple recipients. How many recipients? Daiho asked. At least a dozen, maybe more. They're using randomized routing to hide their locations. Park pulled up files on her terminal. I've been trying to identify them, but they're careful. No patterns, no repeated mistakes. Hana studied the data. But there must be a pattern. All conspiracies have one. The question is finding the right lens to see it. They worked together, comparing notes and cross-referencing information. It was strange, Daiho thought, how naturally they fell into a rhythm. Park's methodical security work, Hana's strategic thinking, his own cryptographic analysis. They complemented each other. It was Hana who found the first real clue. Look at the timing. Each message is sent exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes after the previous one. That's oddly specific, Park said. Specific enough to be a code in itself, Daiho realized. If you convert 417 to coordinates using standard navigation matrices, he ran the calculation. The result was a location in the station's administrative sector. They pulled up the layout and found it corresponded to a series of private meeting rooms used by high-level visitors. Who's booked those rooms? Hana asked. Park checked the reservation system. Multiple users, trade delegations, diplomatic staff, business consortiums. She highlighted one name, including Admiral Yejin Han. She arrived 2 days ago for the peace talks. Daiho knew that name. Admiral Han was a decorated officer with a reputation for aggressive tactics against pirates and smugglers. She was also known for her hawkish views on alien relations. She could be here to ensure the talks succeed, Hana said thoughtfully, or to ensure they fail. There's more. Park pulled up another file. Someone from the Valoran delegation has also been using those rooms, Trade Minister Bo Ra. Hana's whole body stiffened. Bo Ra is here? You know her? She is a political rival. We have disagreed on matters of policy for years. Hana's translator couldn't quite capture the emotion in her voice, but Daiho heard it anyway. Anger and worry. She believes humanity is a threat that should be contained, not negotiated with. So we have a human admiral who distrusts aliens and a Valoran minister who distrusts humans, both in positions to sabotage the peace talks, Park said. That's convenient. Maybe too convenient, Daiho was thinking. What if they're not working together? What if someone is manipulating both of them? To what end? War. If humans and Valorans go to war, we'd both be weakened. That benefits someone else. He pulled up a star chart. Who else has territorial ambitions in this region? Hana answered immediately. The Karthix Collective. They control resource-rich systems bordering both our territories. In a war, they could expand while we fight each other. Park looked skeptical. That's a pretty big leap. You're suggesting an entirely separate alien power is orchestrating this? It makes sense, Daiho argued. Using old human protocols throws suspicion on Federation intelligence. Having both human and Velaran officials involved makes it look like both governments want war. But if neither side is actually in control, then we're all being played. Park stood up, pacing. But I can't take this to my superiors without proof. They'll think I've lost my mind. We need to identify the actual conspirators, Hana said. The people receiving those encrypted messages. If we can trace them to the Karthiks, we have our proof. That was easier said than done. The message recipients were well hidden, using technology specifically designed to avoid detection. But they had one advantage. Daeho knew how that technology worked because he had used it himself during his intelligence days. I can create a trace program, he said. It'll take time, and it's not exactly legal, but it might work. How much time? Park asked. 6 hours, maybe 8. The peace talks start in 14 hours. Park looked at them both. Do it. I'll cover for you if anyone asks questions. They split up. Park returned to her regular duties to avoid suspicion. Hana went back to the diplomatic quarters to watch Minister Bo-Ra. Daeho headed for the Dawn's promise to build his trace program. Taemin was not happy about the plan. You're going to hack station communications? Do you want to spend the next 10 years in a Federation prison? Only if we get caught. Daeho was already pulling up code libraries. And only if we fail. If we succeed, we prevent a war. And if you're wrong about this conspiracy, if it's just paranoid suspicion, then I'll apologize to everyone and buy you the best dinner money can buy. Taemin sighed. I'm holding you to that. The trace program took 7 hours to write and test. It was delicate work, requiring Daeho to balance effectiveness against detectability. Too aggressive and station security would spot it immediately, too subtle and it would miss important data. Finally, he was ready. He activated the program and watched as it began filtering through the station's communication network, searching for the encrypted protocol signatures. Results started coming back almost immediately. 12 recipients, just as Park had estimated. The program identified their general locations, but couldn't pinpoint exact identities without more invasive scanning. But there was enough information to see patterns. 4 were in the diplomatic quarter, 3 in station administration, 2 in the commercial sector, and 3 in a section of the station designated for visiting military personnel. Daeho was cross-referencing locations when Hana's voice came through his comm, urgent and strained. Daeho, I have a problem. Minister Bo-Ra's security just detained me. They claim I was spying on diplomatic activities. Can they do that? You're a princess. They can if they claim security concerns. They are taking me to a holding area. A pause. This is not coincidence. Bo-Ra knows I am investigating something. I'm coming. No, if you attempt to help, you will also be detained. Continue the trace program. Find the evidence we need. Her voice was steady despite the situation. Trust Park to handle things legally. The connection cut off. Daeho stared at his screen, torn between helping Hana and finishing the investigation. She was right that trying a rescue would only make things worse, but leaving her in enemy hands felt wrong. He called Park and explained the situation. She promised to look into it through official channels, but warned it would take time. Valoran diplomatic immunity was complicated, and Bo-Ra clearly had enough influence to bend rules. Frustrated, Daeho returned to his trace program. The results were getting more detailed now, showing communication patterns between the recipients. He noticed something odd. The messages weren't all coming from the same source. Some originated from one group of recipients and went to others, like a relay network. And the timing of the messages corresponded to station activities, shift changes, supply deliveries, diplomatic meetings. Someone was coordinating the conspiracy with precise knowledge of station operations. Then he saw it. One of the recipients in the military section had sent a message just minutes ago. The trace program had captured the full header data, including physical location. The message came from Admiral Han's quarters. Daeho sat back. his mind racing. They had suspected the Admiral, but having proof was different. He was about to call Park when his ship's proximity sensors detected something wrong. Multiple people were approaching the Dawn's Promise. Armed people, moving with military precision. "Tae-min," Dae-ho said quietly. "We've got company. Secure the data and prepare for boarding." "On it." Tae-min's voice was calm, professional. The voice he used when things were going very bad. Dae-ho downloaded the trace program results to multiple locations, including a secure drop that would automatically send to Hyunwoo if he didn't check in within 12 hours. Then he went to the airlock. The people outside wore no uniforms, but their bearings screamed military. The leader, a woman with cold eyes, smiled at him without warmth. "Captain Kim, Admiral Han requests your presence, now." Admiral Yejin Han's quarters were in the military section of Nexus Station, a sterile suite that looked more like an office than living space. Maps and data displays covered the walls, showing ship movements and strategic positions throughout the sector. The Admiral herself sat behind a desk, her uniform crisp and her gray hair pulled back severely. Dae-ho stood in front of the desk, flanked by the Admiral's security team. They had been professional but firm during the escort, making it clear that refusing the invitation was not an option. "Captain Kim," Admiral Han said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." Dae-ho sat carefully, aware of the armed personnel behind him. "Admiral, your people didn't give me much choice about coming here. A precaution. You've been conducting unauthorized investigations into sensitive matters. That tends to make security nervous." She pulled up a holographic display showing Dae-ho's recent activities. "You've been quite busy, working with a Valoran princess, accessing restricted areas, building trace programs in station communications. You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone. It's my job." Admiral Han dismissed the display. "The question is, what should I do about you?" Dae-ho decided honesty was his only option. "I know about the encrypted signals, the conspiracy to sabotage the peace talks. Your quarters are one of the transmission points." To his surprise, the Admiral smiled. It wasn't a warm expression. "Good. You found that faster than I expected. Now tell me, Captain, who do you think I'm working for?" "I don't know." "That's what I've been trying to figure out. Let me help you." Admiral Han stood and walked to one of the wall displays. 6 months ago, Federation intelligence detected unusual communication patterns in this sector. Old protocols that should have been retired. Someone was building a network, recruiting assets, preparing for something. She pulled up files that showed the same data Dae-ho had collected, but with more detail, more connections. I was sent here undercover to investigate. My official role is military observer for the peace talks. My actual mission is to identify and stop whoever is orchestrating this conspiracy. She looked at him directly. "I've been using the old protocols myself, sending false messages to flush out the real conspirators." Dae-ho felt his understanding of the situation shift. "You're not part of the conspiracy. You're investigating it. Just as you are, though your methods have been considerably less subtle." Admiral Han sat down again. "The problem is, we're running out of time. The peace talks begin in 6 hours. Whatever the conspirators are planning will happen soon." "What about Hana?" "Princess Hana has been detained by Minister Bora's security." "I know. I'm working on securing her release, but diplomatic immunity makes it complicated." The Admiral's expression darkened. "Bora is definitely involved. We've traced several of the encrypted messages to her staff, but we can't prove she's in direct control." "Because someone else is pulling the strings," Dae-ho said. "The Karthix Collective." Admiral Han looked genuinely surprised. "You figured that out?" "Hana and I worked it out together. It's the only thing that makes sense. Weaken both our civilizations through war, then expand while we're busy fighting." Clever woman, that princess. The Admiral pulled up more files. We've suspected Karthik's involvement, but proving it is difficult. They're careful to work through intermediaries and cutouts. A thought occurred to Deho. You said you were sending false messages to flush out conspirators. What if the real conspirators think you're one of them? They might. I've been careful to appear hawkish, to suggest that I want the peace talks to fail. Admiral Han paused. Why? Because they might contact you directly, bring you into their final planning. Deho leaned forward. Can you trace incoming messages the way I traced outgoing ones? I can. My equipment is considerably better than yours and no offense. None taken. So if they send you instructions for tomorrow, you'll know exactly where the message comes from. And we can identify the masterminds. Admiral Han actually smiled. A real one this time. Captain, you have a talent for this work. Are you sure you want to stay in the cargo business? Before Deho could answer, an alert chimed on the Admiral's terminal. She checked it and her expression became grim. Incoming encrypted message, using the conspiracy's protocols. She activated a trace program. Let's see who's talking to me. They watched as the message decoded. It contained instructions for a coordinated action during tomorrow's peace talks. Multiple operatives would be activated simultaneously. The goal was clear: make it look like both sides had betrayed the negotiations. That's elaborate, Deho said. How many people are involved? At least 20 based on these instructions. They've infiltrated both delegations, plus station security and administration. Admiral Han tracked the message source. Got it? The message originated from... She trailed off, staring at the results. What is it? The Karthik's diplomatic suite. They've been hosting cultural events, positioning themselves as neutral mediators. But this message came from their secure communications room. She looked at Deho. We have our proof. Can you stop them? Not alone. If I move against the Karthiks officially, it could cause an even bigger incident. I need cooperation from Velaran security. She stood. Which means I need Princess Hana free and able to act on behalf of her government. Bora won't release her without a good reason. Then we give her one. Admiral Han activated her comm. Commander Jinna Ryu, please report to my quarters immediately. A few minutes later, a woman in Federation military intelligence uniform arrived. She looked at Deho with recognition. Captain Kim, it's been a while. Deho felt his stomach drop. Commander Ryu had been his superior officer during his intelligence service. She was brilliant, ruthless, and had tried very hard to convince him to stay when his contract ended. Commander, he said carefully, I didn't know you were on the station. I'm part of Admiral Han's team. We've been coordinating the investigation. She turned to the Admiral. You needed me? We need to extract Princess Hana from Valoran custody without causing a diplomatic incident. I thought you might have ideas. Commander Ryu smiled, and Deho recognized that expression. She had a plan, and someone was about to have a very bad day. As it happens, I do. But it requires Captain Kim's cooperation. She looked at him. And it requires him to trust me, which might be difficult given our history. What's the plan? Deho asked. We tell Minister Bora that Captain Kim has been arrested for espionage and is willing to testify about Princess Hana's involvement in conspiracy against the Valoran government. Bora will want to be present for the interrogation to ensure the testimony supports her position. But I haven't been arrested. Not yet. But you could be officially with Admiral Han's authority. Temporary detention for investigation purposes. Commander Ryu's expression was serious. When Bora comes to the interrogation, we confront her with the evidence of the Karthik's conspiracy. Force her to choose between her political ambitions and her loyalty to the Valoran Empire. It was risky. If Bora was fully committed to the conspiracy, she might simply have them all killed. But if there was any doubt in her mind, any loyalty to her own people, she might be convinced to help. I'm in, Deho said, but I want assurances that Hana won't be harmed. You have my word, Admiral Han said. Commander Ryu, make it happen. The next few hours were tense. Dae-ho was officially placed under arrest and transferred to a secure holding area. Tae-min, watching from the Dawn's Promise, sent increasingly worried messages that Dae-ho couldn't answer. Detective Park was informed of the operation and assigned to provide security support. Minister Bo-ra took the bait. She arrived at the interrogation room with a full security detail, clearly expecting to witness Hana's political destruction. Instead, she found Admiral Han, Commander Ryu, and a wall full of evidence showing the Karthik's conspiracy. Bo-ra's reaction was not what Dae-ho expected. The Valoran minister looked at the evidence, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the display light, and then she started laughing. The translator rendered it as harsh, bitter sound. "You think this surprises me?" Bo-ra said. "You think I did not know the Karthiks were involved?" Admiral Han's expression didn't change. "Then you admit to working with them. I admit to being approached by them. 6 months ago, a Karthik's agent offered me resources and support if I would help sabotage the peace talks." Bo-ra's translator conveyed contempt. "I pretended to agree so I could identify their network." "You're claiming to be investigating them," Commander Ryu said skeptically. "I am claiming exactly that. Why do you think I had Princess Hana detained? Not to stop her investigation, but to protect her." Bo-ra pulled up her own files, showing detailed intelligence on Karthik's operations. "I knew she was looking into the conspiracy. I knew she was working with Captain Kim, and I knew the Karthiks had identified both of them as threats." Dae-ho felt the situation spinning beyond his understanding. "So you're not the enemy?" "I am Bo-ra's political enemy," a new voice said. Princess Hana entered the room, flanked by Valoran guards. "But she is loyal to our empire. I should have realized that sooner." Bo-ra and Hana looked at each other across the room, years of rivalry visible in their postures. Then, slowly, Bo-ra made a gesture of respect that her translator interpreted as acknowledgement of an equal. "We have been fools," Bo-ra said, "fighting each other while the real enemy prepared to destroy us both." "Then we stop being fools," Admiral Han said firmly. "We have 6 hours until the peace talks. In that time, we need to identify every Karthik's operative, neutralize their plans, and expose their conspiracy to both our governments." "How?" Hana asked. "We cannot arrest people without proof. We cannot make accusations without causing exactly the panic the Karthiks want." Dae-ho had been thinking. What if we let them make their move? Let them activate their plan, but control how it plays out. Make it obvious who's really behind it. Everyone looked at him. Commander Ryu smiled slightly. "I knew you still had the instincts. Explain." "The Karthik's plan depends on both sides believing the other betrayed them. But what if we stage our own betrayal first? Make it so obvious, so theatrical that everyone knows it's fake. Then when the real attack comes, it'll be clear who's actually responsible." It was a variation on techniques Dae-ho had learned in intelligence training. Control the narrative by making the lie so obvious that truth becomes visible by contrast. Admiral Han considered it. Risky, but it might work. We'd need cooperation from both delegations. "Leave that to me," Hana said. "I can convince my people." "And I can handle the human side," the Admiral added. They had a plan. Not a perfect one, but the best they could manage with limited time. As they prepared to implement it, Dae-ho found himself standing next to Commander Ryu. "You've gotten better at this," she said quietly. "More creative, less by the book." "I had good teachers, even if I didn't appreciate them at the time." "And now? Still prefer hauling cargo to saving civilizations?" Dae-ho thought about it. "Ask me again after tomorrow." The conference hall in the diplomatic quarter was filled with carefully arranged tension. human and Valoran delegates sat on opposite sides of a long table, with neutral observers from various civilizations positioned along the walls. The Carthix delegation occupied a prominent position, presenting themselves as impartial mediators. Deho watched from a maintenance corridor above the hall, monitoring the security feeds with Detective Park. They had 6 hours to prepare, and they had used every minute. Admiral Han had positioned her people throughout the station. Princess Hana had coordinated with Valoran security. Commander Ryu had set up surveillance on every known Carthix operative, and Deho had prepared his signal. "Showtime in 5 minutes," Park said quietly. "Are you sure this will work?" "Not even a little bit," Deho admitted. "But it's the best plan we have." The peace talks began with formal statements. The human ambassador spoke about cooperation and mutual benefit. The Valoran representative echoed the sentiment in flowing, translated phrases. The Carthix mediator offered platitudes about unity and understanding. All of it was theater. Everyone in that room knew what was really happening. 15 minutes into the talks, the first incident occurred. A human security officer drew his weapon, aiming at the Valoran delegates. Before he could fire, Admiral Han's people tackled him. The entire room erupted into shouting. It was fake. The security officer was one of theirs. The weapon loaded with blanks, the whole thing staged. But it looked real enough to trigger a response. The Carthix operatives took the bait. From 4 different positions around the conference hall, concealed weapons activated, real weapons, designed to kill. But Admiral Han's people were ready. They intercepted the shots with personal shields and returned fire with stunning precision. The Carthix operatives fell, unconscious but alive. Their weapons clattered to the floor, evidence of their true intentions. In the confusion, Deho activated his signal. It used the same old Federation protocols that the conspirators had been using, but with a critical difference. Instead of being encrypted, it was broadcast in clear text, and instead of containing secret instructions, it contained a full breakdown of the Carthix conspiracy. Every communication terminal on Nexus Station received the message simultaneously. Every diplomat, every security officer, every civilian with a data pad. The message detailed the Carthix plan to start a war, named their operatives, and provided proof of their manipulation. It was impossible to ignore and impossible to suppress. "Signal away," Deho said. "Now we see if anyone believes it." The reaction was immediate and chaotic. In the conference hall, delegates were reading the message on their personal devices. Shock and anger spread through the room. The Carthix mediator tried to protest, claiming fabrication and conspiracy, but Admiral Han's people were already arresting Carthix personnel. "We have evidence of your involvement," Admiral Han announced, her voice cutting through the noise. "Weapons, communications, testimony from operatives we've captured. Your conspiracy is over." The Carthix mediator, a tall being with scaled skin and cold eyes, looked around the room and realized the situation was lost. "This proves nothing. You cannot—" "Actually, we can," Princess Hana said, stepping forward. In her hands was a data crystal containing months of intelligence gathering. "Minister Bora and I have been investigating your network independently. Together with Federation intelligence, we have documented everything." It was a lie, sort of. They had only started working together hours ago. But the bluff worked. The Carthix mediator's expression shifted from defiance to resignation. "You think this saves you?" the mediator said. "The damage is done. Suspicion between your peoples will remain. You will still tear each other apart." "Maybe," Admiral Han said. "Or maybe we'll remember who the real enemy is." Security teams moved through the station, rounding up identified Carthix operatives. Detective Park coordinated the arrests, using the evidence Deho's signal had provided. It was the largest security operation Nexus Station had seen in years. In the maintenance corridor, Deho watched it all unfold on the monitors. He felt Taemin's presence before his friend spoke. "Is it over?" Taman asked. I think so. The conspiracy is exposed. The Karthiks are being arrested. The peace talks can continue. And what about us? Do we get to go back to being cargo haulers now? Deho smiled. I hope so. This was exhausting. But it wasn't quite over. As arrests continued, one of the Karthik's operatives made a desperate move. He activated an explosive device hidden in the diplomatic quarter designed to destroy evidence and cause maximum chaos. Alarms screamed throughout the station. Security protocols initiated, sealing sections and evacuating personnel. Deho watched the timer on his screen. 3 minutes until detonation. That's near the conference hall, Park said urgently. We need to evacuate. No time. The delegates are still in there, including Hana. Deho was already running toward the conference hall. Where's the bomb? Near the Karthik's delegation quarters, but I can't get an exact location. Deho's mind raced through possibilities. Bomb disposal would take too long. Evacuation might not get everyone clear, but if he could isolate the blast, he keyed his comm. Taman, I need you to override the environmental systems in Section 4 Delta, seal the blast doors and evacuate atmosphere. Boss, that's crazy! The pressure differential could... Just do it. We have 2 minutes. While Taman worked, Deho sprinted toward the Karthik's quarters. He found the device easily enough. A small case pulsing with energy signatures. Military grade, designed for maximum destruction in confined spaces. He couldn't defuse it, but he could move it. Deho grabbed the case, feeling it vibrate against his hands. The timer showed 90 seconds. Taman, tell me you're ready. Blast doors are sealed. Atmosphere evacuating. You have 1 minute to get clear. Deho ran toward the sealed section, the bomb heavy in his arms. 60 seconds. He reached the emergency airlock, placed the device inside, and sealed it. 40 seconds. Blow the outer door, he ordered. That'll decompress the whole section. That's the idea. Do it. 30 seconds. The outer airlock door exploded open, and the bomb was sucked into space by the pressure differential. Deho was thrown backward by the force, but managed to grab a support rail. 20 seconds. He watched through the viewport as the device tumbled into the void, getting farther from the station with each moment. 10 seconds. Everyone brace for... The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but spectacular to watch. A sphere of energy and debris expanded rapidly, then dissipated into space. The station's shields absorbed the radiation. Alarms quieted. Deho sat on the floor, breathing hard. Taman's voice came through the comm, shaking with relief and anger. Boss, I swear, if you ever do something that stupid again... I know, I'm sorry. Is everyone okay? Station integrity is intact. No casualties reported. A pause. You're an idiot. Yeah, but we're alive. Emergency teams arrived to secure the area and begin repairs. Deho found himself being checked by medical staff despite his protests that he was fine. When they finally cleared him, he made his way back to the conference hall. The peace talks had resumed, remarkably. Both delegations seemed determined to prove that the Karthik's conspiracy had failed. Admiral Han was coordinating security while Commander Ryu managed the interrogation of captured operatives. Detective Park was buried in paperwork. Deho found Princess Hana standing by one of the observation windows, watching the repair crews work on the damaged section. That was brave, she said without looking at him. And foolish. I'm hearing that a lot today. He joined her at the window. How are the talks going? Better than expected. Discovering a mutual enemy has a way of building cooperation. She turned to face him, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the station lights. You saved many lives today, Deho, both human and Valoran. We saved them. This was a team effort. Perhaps. But you were the one who found the first encrypted signal. You were the one who chose to investigate instead of ignoring it. You were the catalyst. Daeho didn't know what to say to that. I just did what seemed right. That is more rare than you might think. Hana was quiet for a moment. I will be returning to my homeworld soon. My role here is complete. Will you tell them about how you learned Federation protocols? I will tell them everything. The intelligence I gathered, the conspiracy we uncovered, and the alliance we built to stop it. She made a gesture that her translator interpreted as respect. I will recommend that we establish formal intelligence sharing protocols with your government. We are stronger together than apart. The Karthiks taught us that at least. They did. Though I suspect they did not intend to. Hana looked back at the stars visible through the viewport. Before I leave, I want to give you something. She handed him a small data crystal. This contains the encryption protocols I developed during my investigation. Modified Federation codes that neither of our governments currently use. If you ever need to contact me securely, use these. Daeho accepted the crystal, understanding what she was really saying. A private communication channel, outside official systems, a way to maintain the alliance they had built. The next time someone uses that signal, he said, I'll know it's you. And I will know you are listening. Hana smiled, an expression that looked strange on Valoran features, but was somehow genuine. Thank you, Daeho, for trusting me when you had every reason not to. Thank you for being worthy of that trust. They stood together in silence, watching the stars and the busy repair activity. Two people from different worlds who had found common ground in crisis. It felt like the beginning of something important, though neither of them could quite name what. Eventually, Hana left to prepare for her departure. Daeho made his way back to the Dawn's Promise, where Taemin was waiting with crossed arms and a disapproving expression. Don't start, Daeho said. I'm not starting anything. I'm just standing here, thinking about how my captain threw himself into space with a bomb. I was behind blast doors. Oh, well, that makes it completely safe then. Despite the sarcasm, Daeho could see the relief in his friend's eyes. I'm okay, Taemin. We're okay. Yeah, until the next time you decide to play hero. Taemin sighed. Come on, I'll make us something to eat. Then you can tell me if we're actually going back to hauling cargo or if you're going to accept whatever job offer Admiral Han is obviously preparing. I haven't decided yet. Sure you haven't. Taemin headed toward the galley. But I know you, boss, and I know that look in your eyes. This isn't over for you. Daeho looked at the data crystal Hana had given him, then at the stars beyond his ship's viewports. Maybe Taemin was right. Maybe this was just the beginning. 3 days after the crisis, Nexus Station was still buzzing with activity. News of the Karthiks conspiracy had spread throughout known space, triggering investigations and diplomatic upheaval. The Karthiks Collective issued denials. But the evidence was overwhelming. Their influence in the region was collapsing. Daeho stood in one of the station's observation lounges, watching ships come and go. The Dawn's Promise was ready to fly, cargo hold loaded with medical supplies bound for the outer colonies. A routine job. Safe. Simple. Boring. He should have been excited to get back to normal life. Instead, he felt restless. Captain Kim. Admiral Han approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She offered one to him. Thought you might need this. Thanks. Daeho accepted the cup, noting it was prepared exactly how he liked it. The Admiral had done her homework. I wanted to thank you personally, Admiral Han said. Your work prevented a war. That's not an exaggeration. Without your investigation, the Karthiks conspiracy would have succeeded. I had a lot of help. You did. But you were the one who chose to act when you could have walked away. She paused. Commander Ryu has been singing your praises. She wants you back in intelligence. I figured that was coming. And? Daeho sipped his coffee, considering. I left intelligence for good reasons. The secrecy, the manipulation, the constant suspicion, it wore me down. All fair concerns, but you're good at the work. Better than most. And the galaxy needs people who can see patterns others miss. Admiral Han looked out at the ships. We're entering a new era. Humanity's expanding, meeting more alien civilizations, facing new threats. We need people who can build bridges across species barriers. You're saying I'm good with aliens? I'm saying you're good at seeing people instead of just categories. Human, Velaran, whatever. You judge individuals on their actions. She smiled slightly. That's rarer than you think, even in organizations designed for it. I'll think about it, Dae-Ho said, which was more than he had offered Commander Ryu. Admiral Han seemed satisfied with that. Fair enough. If you change your mind, contact me directly. She handed him a secure comm code. Or if you just stumble across another conspiracy. Those seem to find you. After she left, Dae-Ho remained in the lounge. He was still there when Detective Park found him an hour later. Hiding? She asked, leaning against the viewport. Thinking. About whether to stay a cargo hauler or go back to saving the galaxy? Is everyone going to ask me about this? Probably. You're kind of a hero now. The modest merchant captain who exposed an interstellar conspiracy. Park grinned. Station security wants to give you a commendation. Please don't. Too late. Ceremony is tomorrow. She grew more serious. For what it's worth, I think you should stay independent. We need people outside the official systems, people who can ask questions without worrying about chain of command. Like you? Like both of us. I'm staying with station security, but I'm going to be watching for patterns. And now I know I can call you if something doesn't add up. Park held out her hand. Partners? Informally? Dae-Ho shook her hand. I can live with that. Later. Back on the Dawn's Promise, Dae-Ho found Taemin performing pre-flight checks with unusual intensity. Everything okay? Dae-Ho asked. Just making sure the ship is perfect. Don't want anything going wrong on our nice, normal, boring cargo run. Dae-Ho heard the emphasis. You think I should turn down Admiral Han's offer? I think you should do what makes you happy. But I also think you're not happy unless you're solving puzzles and helping people. Taemin straightened up, looking at him directly. I've known you for 5 years, boss. I've seen you content. I've seen you satisfied. But the last few days? That's the first time I've seen you truly engaged. It was also terrifying and nearly got us killed. Yeah, but you were alive in a way you haven't been since I met you. Taemin smiled. Look, I signed up to be your co-pilot and engineer. That job doesn't change whether we're hauling medical supplies or investigating conspiracies. I'm in either way. Dae-Ho felt something tight in his chest loosen. You're a good friend, Taemin. I know. You can thank me by buying that expensive dinner you promised. Before Dae-Ho could respond, his comm chimed. Princess Hana's signal, using the private encryption protocols she had given him. Dae-Ho, her translated voice said. I wanted to speak before I depart. Are you available? They met in a quiet corner of the diplomatic quarter, away from the crowds and ceremonies. Hana was dressed in traveling robes, simpler than her formal wear but still marked with royal insignia. My ship leaves in 2 hours, she said. I will be in transit for several weeks. Then face extensive debriefings on my homeworld. Will they give you trouble for working with humans? Some will object, but I have results they cannot ignore. The conspiracy is exposed, war is avoided, and we have established the foundation for intelligence cooperation. Hana made a gesture of satisfaction. My political rivals will complain, but they cannot deny success. What about Bo-Ra? Minister Bo-Ra and I have reached an understanding. We still disagree on policy, but we respect each other's loyalty to our empire. Hana paused. She asked me to thank you. She does not trust humans in general, but she trusts you specifically. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. Hana looked at him carefully. I have been thinking about what made our alliance work. We should have been enemies or at least rivals. Different species, different governments, different goals. But we succeeded together. Because we focused on the real problem instead of our differences. Yes. And because humans have a quality that my people lack. You are adaptable. When confronted with the unexpected, you adjust your thinking instead of clinging to doctrine. She made a sound that the translator interpreted as thoughtful. You saw an alien princess who needed help, not an enemy to be feared. That flexibility is your greatest strength. Deho considered that. Maybe. But Valorans have strengths too. Your strategic thinking, your attention to detail. We balanced each other. We did. Hana reached into her robes and produced a small object, a crystal carved in intricate Valoran style. A gift. It represents alliance in our culture. Keep it as a reminder that friendship can exist between our peoples. Deho accepted the crystal, feeling its weight. I'll treasure it, and I'll remember what we accomplished together. As will I. Hana made a formal bow. Until we meet again, Deho Kim, I hope it will be under better circumstances. Same here, Hana. Safe travels. He watched her leave, surrounded by her guards, returning to her own world and its complex politics. Part of him wondered if they would actually meet again, or if this was just a polite farewell. But he had the crystal, and he had the encryption protocols, and he had the memory of working with someone who saw past species to recognize a kindred spirit. That evening, Deho sat in the Dawn's Promise galley with Taemin, sharing the expensive dinner he had promised. They ate in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. So, Taemin said finally, what did you decide? About Admiral Han's offer? Deho swirled his drink. I'm going to turn it down, but I'm also going to change how we operate. Meaning? We keep hauling cargo. That's our cover and our livelihood. But we also stay alert for problems. We use our contacts, our skills, our position as independent operators. Deho pulled out the comm code Admiral Han had given him. And when we find something worth investigating, we investigate. So we're part-time heroes now? We're full-time cargo haulers who occasionally prevent wars. Deho smiled. There's a difference. Taemin raised his glass. To preventing wars. Occasionally. Occasionally, Deho agreed, touching his glass to Taemin's. 2 days later, the Dawn's Promise departed Nexus Station. Deho sat in the captain's chair, watching the station shrink in the view screen. The peace talks had concluded successfully, with both human and Valoran governments committing to a new era of cooperation. The Karthik's conspiracy was being dismantled across multiple systems. Detective Park had her commendation and a promotion. Admiral Han had returned to her regular duties with a successful mission on her record, and Deho was back to hauling cargo, but everything had changed. His ship's long-range comm activated. A message from Dr. Hyun-Woo Lee. Deho, fascinating development. I've been analyzing some communication patterns in the outer colonies, and there's something odd. Probably nothing, but it reminded me of what you found. Call me when you have a chance. Probably nothing. But then again, the last probably nothing had turned into an interstellar conspiracy. Deho looked at Taemin, who had heard the message and was already sighing. Don't even think about it, Taemin said. We have a cargo contract. We're delivering medical supplies. We're staying out of trouble. Absolutely, medical supplies. No trouble. Deho made a note to call Hyun-Woo after their delivery. I'm just going to ask a few questions. Famous last words. But Taemin was smiling as he said it, and Deho knew his friend was ready for whatever came next. They both were. The Dawn's Promise accelerated toward its destination, carrying cargo and secrets, flying between worlds with the knowledge that sometimes the most important work happened in the spaces between official channels. Sometimes a cargo hauler and a princess could change the course of history, and sometimes the most powerful signal was the one that brought unlikely allies together. In his quarters, Daeho looked at the crystal Hana had given him and the secure comm protocols. Somewhere out there, she was having similar thoughts, preparing for their next encounter. Because both of them knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new kind of alliance. One built not on treaties or governments, but on trust earned through shared danger and mutual respect. The galaxy was changing. New civilizations were meeting, new conflicts emerging, new opportunities for cooperation or catastrophe. And somewhere in that vast space, there would always be people like Daeho and Hana, people who chose to build bridges instead of walls, to seek truth instead of accepting easy answers. The comm chimed again. This time, it was the private channel. Hana's encrypted signal. "I am safely aboard my ship. The journey home begins. Thank you again for everything, Daeho. Until our next conspiracy." Daeho smiled and sent back a simple reply. "Until next time. Stay safe." He leaned back in his chair, looking at the stars streaming past his viewport. The universe was full of mysteries and dangers, but it was also full of possibilities, and Captain Daeho Kim, formerly of Federation Military Intelligence, currently of the merchant vessel Dawn's Promise, was ready for all of it. After all, he had learned something important from his unlikely partnership with Princess Hana. The galaxy didn't need more soldiers or spies. It needed people who could see beyond their own species, their own interests, their own fears. It needed people who could recognize allies in unexpected places and who had the courage to trust despite every reason not to. That was humanity's real strength, not their weapons or their technology, but their ability to adapt, to cooperate, to build coalitions that should have been impossible. Only Federation spies use that signal, someone had said at the beginning of this adventure. But that wasn't true anymore. Now it was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what could be accomplished when different civilizations chose cooperation over conflict. And if Daeho had anything to say about it, there would be many more such bridges in the years to come.